The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days when Emily Carter stood alone outside the small cemetery in a quiet town in Oregon. She watched her 17-year-old daughter, Lily, place white roses on her father's grave. Lily smiled through her tears, believing she knew the whole story of the man she had loved and lost. She didn't. Emily carried a secret that had lived in her heart for nearly 18 years. Every birthday, every Christmas, every school graduation, every bedtime story had become another reminder of the promise she had made, a promise that was slowly breaking her apart. When Lily was only a few weeks old, doctors had warned Emily that her husband, Daniel, had little time left because of an aggressive heart disease. As he lay in the hospital, weak but smiling, he squeezed Emily's hand. "Promise me," he whispered, "if she ever has a chance at a better life, don't let my mistakes become hers." Emily had promised without understanding what he truly meant. Only after Daniel passed away did she discover dozens of letters hidden in the attic, along with court documents proving that years before they met, Daniel had been involved in a terrible accident that had changed another family's life forever. Although he had spent years trying to make things right, he believed Lily would one day be judged for his past instead of her own future. So Emily locked the papers away. She never told Lily. Now, 18 years later, the truth was becoming impossible to hide. That same afternoon, Emily received an unexpected phone call. "Mrs. Carter?" "Yes." "My name is Michael Harris. I think it's time we talked about Daniel." Emily's heart nearly stopped. She hadn't heard that name in almost 2 decades. "What do you want?" "I have something that belongs to Lily." After the call ended, Emily looked toward her daughter, laughing with friends outside the cemetery gates. For a moment, she wished time could simply freeze. But secrets never stay buried forever. As the storm clouds rolled across the sky, Emily realized that the life she had built to protect her daughter was about to change forever. Emily barely slept that night. Michael Harris's words echoed through her mind over and over. "I have something that belongs to Lily." Before sunrise, she quietly left the house, telling Lily she had an early shift at the hospital. Instead, she drove to a small diner on the edge of town where Michael had asked to meet her. He was older than she remembered, his dark hair now streaked with gray. As soon as Emily saw him, she recognized the man whose family had been forever changed by Daniel's past. "I didn't come here to hurt you," Michael said gently. "Or Lily." Emily folded her arms, trying to hide her trembling hands. "Then why now?" Michael slid a worn leather envelope across the table. Inside were several handwritten letters and a small silver key. "Daniel asked me to keep these until Lily turned 18. Emily stared at the familiar handwriting. Tears filled her eyes before she had even unfolded the first page. "He wanted her to know the whole truth," Michael continued. "Not just about the accident, but about the years he spent trying to make things right." Emily looked down, ashamed. "I thought I was protecting her." "You were protecting her childhood," Michael replied softly. "There's a difference." On the drive home, the envelope rested on the passenger seat like it weighed 100 pounds. That evening, Lily found her mother sitting alone on the back porch, quietly crying. "Mom?" she asked. "Is everything okay?" Emily quickly wiped her eyes and forced a smile. "Just thinking about your dad." Lily sat beside her. "I wish I could remember him," she whispered. "Sometimes I wonder what he would say if he were here." Emily reached for her daughter's hand, knowing the moment she had feared for 18 years had finally arrived. "There are things about your father," she said quietly, her voice breaking, "that I've never told you." Lily's smile slowly faded. "What do you mean?" Emily looked toward the setting sun, then placed the envelope into Lily's hands. "I think it's time you knew who your father really was." Lily hesitated before opening it, unaware that the first letter inside was about to change everything she believed about the man she had spent her entire life admiring. Lily's hands trembled as she unfolded the first letter. The paper had yellowed with age, but her father's handwriting was steady and unmistakable. "My dearest Lily, if you're reading this, it means your mother has finally found the strength to tell you what I couldn't. Before I became your father, I made a mistake that changed another family's life forever." Her heart pounded as she continued reading. Daniel confessed that, when he was 23, he had fallen asleep behind the wheel after working a double shift. His truck crossed the center line and crashed into another vehicle. A young woman survived with permanent injuries, while her husband never fully recovered. Daniel accepted responsibility, pleaded guilty to reckless driving, and spent years paying restitution. But no amount of money could erase the pain he had caused. "I lied to you your whole life," Lily whispered, tears filling her eyes. Emily sat across from her, silently crying. "I never wanted you to think your father was a bad man." Lily looked up. "Then why hide this from me?" "Because I wanted you to grow up knowing the man he became, not the worst day of his life." The room fell silent. Lily returned to the letter. "People may remember me for one terrible decision. I hope you'll remember me for the thousands of better ones that followed. I spent every day trying to become the man you could be proud to call Dad." Another envelope slipped from the stack. Inside was a faded photograph of Daniel shaking hands with Michael Harris outside a community center. On the back, Daniel had written, "Forgiveness isn't earned in a day. It's built one choice at a time." For the first time, Lily realized Michael wasn't an enemy. He had been part of her father's journey toward redemption. She looked at her mother with tears streaming down her face. "You carried this alone for 18 years. Emily nodded. "Every single day. I was terrified you'd hate him, or hate me." Instead of answering, Lily crossed the room and wrapped her mother in a tight embrace. "I don't hate either of you," she whispered. "But I think it's time we meet the people Dad spent his life trying to make things right with." Emily closed her eyes, knowing the hardest chapter of their lives was only just beginning. 3 days later, Emily and Lily drove to a quiet neighborhood outside Portland. The GPS announced they had arrived, but neither of them moved. A modest blue house stood at the end of the street, surrounded by rose bushes and an old maple tree. It looked peaceful, yet Emily's heartbeat felt louder than the engine. "This is where they live?" Lily asked softly. Emily nodded. "The Harris family." Lily took a deep breath. "Let's do it." Michael opened the front door before they even reached the porch, as if he had been watching through the window. His warm smile eased some of the tension. "I wasn't sure you'd come." "I almost didn't," Emily admitted. Inside, family photographs covered the walls. Lily noticed pictures of birthdays, graduations, and vacations. Then her eyes stopped on one frame. It showed Daniel standing beside Michael, both smiling as they built a wheelchair ramp outside a small church. "My dad came here?" Lily asked. "Every Saturday," Michael replied, "for nearly 12 years. Emily lowered her eyes. She had known Daniel volunteered, but she had never realized how close he had become to the family he had once hurt. Michael led them into the living room, where an elderly woman slowly stood with the help of a cane. "This is my wife, Sarah." Sarah looked at Lily for several seconds before tears filled her eyes. "You have your father's smile," she whispered. Lily froze, unsure of what to say. "I'm so sorry," she finally said, "for everything my father caused your family." Sarah gently shook her head. "Your father spent years saying those exact words. Eventually, we realized he wasn't asking for forgiveness with speeches. He earned our trust through the way he lived." She pointed toward a bookshelf filled with photo albums. "Whenever our roof leaked, Daniel was there. When Michael lost his job, Daniel helped us pay the mortgage without telling anyone. When our grandson needed surgery, your father organized a fundraiser and never took credit." Lily felt tears streaming down her cheeks. "My whole life," she whispered, "I thought I knew who he was." "You knew the best part of him," Sarah replied. "Now you're learning how he became that man." Before they left, Michael handed Lily one final sealed envelope. "He told me to give you this only after you met us." Lily looked at her mother's anxious face, then slowly broke the seal. The first sentence stole the air from her lungs. "If you've opened this letter, then you already know my greatest mistake. Now it's time you learn the secret your mother never knew." Lily stared at the first line of the letter until the words blurred through her tears. "Now it's time you learn the secret your mother never knew." She looked at Emily, who sat across the room with tired eyes, completely unaware of what Daniel had written. Slowly, Lily continued reading. "Emily believed she saved me after the accident. The truth is, she saved someone else too. She never knew that the woman injured in the crash was pregnant. The doctors feared the baby wouldn't survive, but months later, a healthy little boy was born. Michael and Sarah never blamed that child for what happened. They taught him that forgiveness is stronger than anger. Lily swallowed hard. The letter continued. For years, I secretly paid for that boy's education through a scholarship fund. I never wanted him to know my name because I wasn't looking for gratitude. I simply wanted one good thing to grow from the worst decision of my life. Emily's eyebrows knitted together in confusion. I never knew any of this, she whispered. There's more, Lily replied softly. Daniel explained that every year on Lily's birthday, he also celebrated the little boy's birthday in private. Not because they shared the same birth date, but because he saw both children as reminders that life could still create hope after tragedy. Just then, there was a knock at the front door. Michael stood outside with a young man in his early 20s. This is Ethan, Michael said. The young man smiled nervously. I think we've been connected our whole lives without ever meeting. Lily invited them inside. Ethan looked around the room before turning toward Emily. I grew up knowing a stranger helped pay for my school, my college application fees, and even my first semester at Oregon State. I found out only last month that the stranger was your husband. Emily covered her mouth as tears rolled down her cheeks. I can't believe he kept this from me. He didn't keep it because he didn't trust you, Michael said gently. He kept it because he believed kindness wasn't something that needed applause. Ethan reached into his backpack and pulled out a small wooden box. My grandparents asked me to give you this. Inside was Daniel's old wedding ring, polished until it shined like new. Beneath it rested one final handwritten note. Emily, if this ring ever finds its way back to you, it means Lily knows the truth. Tell her that people are never defined by the worst thing they've done, but by the courage they show in making things right. And if she chooses forgiveness over shame, then the greatest secret of our family will become its greatest legacy. Lily slipped her hand into her mother's, realizing that her father's greatest inheritance had never been money or possessions. It was a life built on redemption, compassion, and the quiet courage to keep doing good, even when no one was watching. 1 year later, the small community center where Daniel had volunteered was filled with families, neighbors, and old friends. The walls were decorated with photographs of people whose lives had been touched by quiet acts of kindness. In the center of the room stood a new wooden sign that read, The Daniel Carter Legacy Scholarship. Lily took a slow breath as she stepped onto the stage. At 19, she had grown stronger than she ever imagined. The pain of learning her father's past had never disappeared, but it had transformed into something deeper, understanding. Emily sat in the front row beside Michael, Sarah, and Ethan. They were no longer connected by tragedy alone. They had become an unlikely family. Lily unfolded a note she had written but barely looked at it. A year ago, she began, I believed people could be divided into two groups, good people and bad people. Then I learned the truth about my father. The room became silent. He made a terrible mistake when he was young. Nothing can erase the pain that mistake caused. But I've also learned that one moment doesn't have to define the rest of a person's life. She glanced toward the large portrait of Daniel hanging behind the stage. My dad spent every day trying to leave the world a little better than he found it. He didn't do it because anyone forced him to. He did it because he believed that real accountability isn't just saying you're sorry. It's choosing to do good again and again, even when no one is watching. Several people quietly wiped away tears. Lily smiled at Ethan before continuing. Because of his generosity, students who have faced hardship will receive this scholarship every year, not to erase the past, but to prove that hope can grow where pain once lived. The audience rose in a standing ovation. After the ceremony, Emily walked outside with Lily. The evening sun painted the Oregon sky in shades of gold and pink. I've carried that secret for almost 20 years, Emily said softly. I was afraid it would destroy you. Lily slipped her arm around her mother's shoulders. It didn't destroy me, Mom. It helped me understand what forgiveness really means. Emily's eyes filled with tears. I'm so proud of you. Lily smiled through her own tears. I'm proud of both of you. As they walked toward the parking lot, Lily looked up at the sky one last time. She no longer saw her father as a perfect man. She saw him as a deeply human one, a man who faced the consequences of his worst decision, accepted responsibility, and spent the rest of his life choosing compassion over shame. And in the end, that became the greatest secret her mother had ever protected, and the greatest lesson their family would ever pass on.